Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Plant Services webinar on Asset Performance Management and CMMS, sponsored by Lumen. I'm Tom Welk, the Chief Editor of Plant Services, and I want to thank you for joining us today. To begin, let me explain how you can participate in today's presentation. First, if you have any technical difficulties during today's session, please put your questions in the question window, and our technical experts will assist you directly. We also recommend disabling any pop-up blocking software or extensions in your browser, as these can cause issues with the webinar player. Additionally, we welcome your questions during today's event. Simply type your questions for the presenters into the question window on the side of your screen and hit the submit button. Today's speakers will respond to questions one-on-one in a live Q&A session following the webinar. If you'd like a copy of the presentation slides, please click on the event resources on the side of your screen to download the presentation. Also available is a link to a Lumen ebook on proactive maintenance best practices. Also, please be aware that today's session is being recorded and will be available on the Plant Services website within 24 hours for on-demand viewing. You'll also be notified by email when the archive is available. And now I'd like to welcome today's speakers, Edward Garibian and Doug Answini, who will speak on the topic of mastering CMMS Plus and criteria-based maintenance. Ed is CEO of Lumen and has more than 28 years of experience in solving challenges customers face. Under his leadership, Lumen was named by the Silicon Valley Review as one of the top 50 leading companies of 2024. Doug is VP and Chief Software Technologist at Lumen. He's a recognized expert in integrating control systems and ERP software with CMMS, and he has more than 2 decades of experience in asset management, CMMS, and inventory control. Welcome, Ed and Doug, and thank you so much for being here today.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. All right, great. Thanks, everyone, for being here. We're excited to talk about, maintenance strategies and those strategies, hopefully in conjunction with CMMS Plus. So a little bit about us. The company is Lumen. We're based in Massachusetts, about an hour and a half west of Boston. So we're not in Boston, but we are in Massachusetts. The product is CMMS Plus. It's a cloud application, basically built mostly around a Microsoft tech stack. Infrastructure is Amazon AWS, and as I said, it is a pure cloud application. But we do actually allow for some of our customers an on-premise deployment if need be. But most of our customers use our cloud infrastructure. And every day we're excited that our customers log in and manage over 1 million assets worldwide. So that's a little bit about us. In terms of what we do, the product CMMS Plus, its focus, its purpose is to manage and protect infrastructure, critical assets, machinery, and of course the operations that depend on those assets and infrastructure. So every day at Lumen we come to work, and our passion is to make sure that any customer using CMMS Plus, they never have an unplanned down incident, and that's our passion. That's what gets us motivated. So why is it important? Well, we get graded sort of the same way you guys do. In other words, these are maintenance KPIs that are critical to our customers, and obviously using our software, our job is to elevate these KPIs for our customers. But as you'll see, CMMS Plus also does a stupendous job of actually increasing various levels and facets of operations. So, for instance, there's a symbol there with supposed to mean collaboration on the left. Our product does a great job of coordinating and communicating with any stakeholder that's involved in the maintenance process. So third parties, vendors, EHS personnel, operations personnel, maintenance personnel, coordinating logistics, supplies, and all that. We do a really nice job of that. Compliance, you're going to see some examples today where we can elevate your ability to meet compliance, regulatory compliance, or compliance with industry standards of excellence, that sort of thing. And also for the financial folks, I think you'll see that our product really does a nice job of increasing the lifetime return on asset investment that companies make in their infrastructure. So really, our customers would tell you that, we are obviously, it's about maintenance, but it's also about maintenance and operations, or maintenance and operational excellence. So that's kind of what you're going to see examples of today as we talk about, criteria and proactive maintenance. So these are some of our alliances. Doug's on the call today, and he is an expert at, our software, but also he does a lot of the work with our integration. And so integration, third-party integration is something that's very, important. And we built our product on that type of, premise. So these are some of our alliances. A lot of them are ERP firms, but some are, controls guys and machine monitoring firms. But these are just sort of a handful of some of the folks that we have technical agreements with. These are some of our customers. Some of these names might be familiar to you, so not so much. But really, the takeaway here is, again, our product architecture is super flexible. So one of the things that we're excited about is that our product is at home managing machine assets, fleet assets, facilities. And so we do a very impactful job managing infrastructure and assets for industries that are, manufacturing, process, food and beverage, but also utilities and that sort of thing, water, wastewater, whatever. So we can manage any type of asset. And I think that, even if obviously you're concerned about, your industry, but even we found that within segments, even one industry, there's oftentimes different types of assets that need to be managed, and our product can accommodate that type of demand. So anyways, back on today's focus. So the topic for today is criteria-based proactive maintenance, or put another way, criteria-based rules for triggering proactive maintenance. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's see how this works in our environment. So with CMMS Plus, our customers can use our product to, monitor, asset parameters, asset conditions, and also operations input. And then they use our product, then to create sort of proactive, thoughtful, criteria-based rules around those different levels of input, such that when an event occurs or a rule has been met that has multiple criteria associated with it, these rules can then trigger outcomes, proactive outcomes that absolutely put the right resources in play, with the right actions, actually the right notifications to stakeholders, and even, if need be, kick in workflows that can create continuous improvement actions and compliance actions. So we're going to take a look at a lot of this today. But first, I do want to just quickly hone in on something. I think it does begin with flexibility. So in other words, when folks from either engineering or maintenance or whoever log in, it's really important that they're logging into an environment where, they don't have to hunt around for information. So based on what role they're in, they want to make sure that whether it's on a mobile device or a desktop or whatever, KPIs that are critical to them, dashboards that mean something to them, and action items that they need to address are sitting there waiting for them. And also nomenclature, like depending on, like we talked about our some of our key accounts from, many different industries. Well, based on the industry they're in or the organization that they're in, we see that our customers want to log into an environment where the nomenclature, the naming conventions, the parameters that are important to monitor are all sort of configured based on, sort of where they work and what industry they're in. So we're going to start with a quick demo of showing what this looks like in CMMS Plus. So this is demo 1. Doug?
Okay, great. Share my screen and we'll get started. I apologize, there's a bit of a 5-10 second lag before the screen shares, and you should be able to see it now. So yes, let's take a look at the the configurability, the flexibility of Lumen CMMS Plus, and also how it shows you real-time KPIs. And that all starts with the homepage dashboards. So the homepage dashboards in Lumen CMMS Plus are really designed to provide our users with all the key information they need to do their jobs on a daily basis. And they are very configurable, shapeable by the users. They can choose from dozens of different charts, metrics, KPIs, and more detailed grids of information to add to their homepage so they can really stay on top of the info that they need in real time. They can also set up alerts on any of these KPIs as well. So just to show you a couple quick examples, right now I'm logged in as a maintenance supervisor, so I have a number of KPIs that I keep an eye on related to how many assets are down, how many work orders are being worked on, and I added one of those alerts to the currently overdue work orders. If that exceeds a threshold of 2, I've told it to turn that red to really draw my attention to where it's most needed. Now, just by way of another real quick example, this is a maintenance technician using the system on their mobile device. They didn't need as many KPIs or charts. They were primarily focused on what is the work I need to be doing today. So they set their homepage up with just a list of work orders assigned to them, and they can see everything they need to see about those work orders and take all the actions they need to on them right from their homepage, which makes for a very efficient, easy to use experience for them. Now, another way that Lumen is very shapeable and flexible is in terms of how the assets can be set up within Lumen. They can be structured into a very flexible hierarchy where you can have different plants or sites, and within each one of those sites you could have different departments, production lines, but it is again a very flexible hierarchy that can be set up however you want, as many levels deep as you want. And you can also, right from this hierarchy view, see the overall status of all the machines, all the assets, all the equipment within any level of this hierarchy. So for example, within a given plant or department or building or area, I can view the real-time status of all my machines with my facility view that shows me all the equipment in this particular area where it's physically located, and that real-time status is being conveyed to me through the color of the asset in here. So in this example here, all my machines that are showing in green are currently up and running. We have no issues there. Any that are showing in purple are currently undergoing some sort of planned maintenance. This will typically be a routine PM, inspection, or calibration. Any that are showing in orange currently have one or more repair work orders open against them. And then finally, any that are in red are currently down. So, it's a great way to, again, keep on top of the real-time status of everything that's going on in a particular department or a particular plant. Now, another way that Lumen can be very flexibly shaped is within how these assets themselves are set up in terms of what information you want to track for each asset. So you can create different asset types in Lumen for the different types of assets that you manage. And for each of those types of assets, you can turn on or off these different cards of information based upon whether or not they're relevant to that type of asset, and also add any number of fields that might be specific to that type of asset. So just to show you a couple quick examples here, we have a piece of production equipment, and we're tracking a lot of information for this type of asset, such as manufacturer information, uploaded documentation, manuals, pictures, downtime information, the full maintenance history, parts information, all being tracked for this type of asset. But we've set up another type of asset for our facilities where we're doing work on buildings or rooms within that building or facility. And here we've turned off most of the cards as they're not relevant to that type of asset, but we've added a number of fields specific to that type of asset, such as the square footage of the facility or the room or the building, flooring material, number of windows, etc. So these are additional shapeable configurations that the users can make right within Lumen CMMS Plus to really make sure that they're tracking everything that they need to and only what they need to for the different types of assets they manage. And then the final, or not the final, but another way that Ed had mentioned in terms of shaping the system is based upon the type of work. You can set up different work types within Lumen, and when you do that, you can turn on or off specific fields or add different rules to those types of work. So for example, work requests that are coming in from our MES system, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the next demonstration. Additional fields are being passed to us. If someone enters a landscaping type work request, they can be prompted to enter the type of landscaping, if there's any hardscape, or if it's just a simple repair request. You can keep it simple. There's a lot more additional rules that you can add to configure different types of work that we'll go over in the next presentation. But it's another example of how Lumen CMMS Plus is very flexible, configurable, and shapeable to your business needs. Okay, back to you, Ed.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Doug. Okay, so let's do a quick poll of the audience. So we're going to talk a little bit about maintenance, mobile maintenance, excuse me, and just get a feel for what's important to you guys on with respect to mobile maintenance. So this should appear on your desktop shortly. All right. So yeah, is mobile maintenance important? And if so, let us hear about what's important in terms of mobile maintenance, if at all. Okay, awesome. Okay, so we're going to send out the results to everyone shortly. Oh, okay, great. All right, fantastic. Okay, so you guys should see the results. All right, let's keep going. Thank you so much. That was great. Yeah, so we're gonna talk more about the different facets of configuration with the product. So mobile is certainly going to be part of it. All right, so let's get into this a little bit more. So we talked about using asset information and operations input, and then creating rules around that. So let's look at some use cases here. So let's start with operations. So we're gonna show some examples of how different operations or personnel input can be used to create actions and outcomes. So work requests, right? A facility work request or a production work request can trigger different outcomes, and different outcomes that literally can shorten the mean time to repair and the mean time to acknowledge. Also, if machine operators are doing checklists, pre-work or pre-shift checklists, or autonomous maintenance checklists, so input from those types of actions can also trigger actions on the maintenance side. And then finally, Doug sort of alluded to this already, if with Lumen's integration to third parties, if there are the organization's using manufacturing software, production software like MES app or whatever, folks write in their native application can create work demand and work requests, and those auto flow into the product. So these are just some examples of how operations input can be used to trigger actions. So let's just see a quick demo and see how it works.
All right. Okay, great. I'll just share my screen. Okay, so you can, really, again, shape the different work types, shape different rules based upon where, information, work requests is coming in from on the operations side of things. I just want to quickly go in back to our work order types and just talk about how they can be, shaped very differently based upon if it's coming in from like, a pre-shift checklist failure or, a request from an MES system. You can really shape these different work order types in terms of any pre-work criteria that is going to be required based upon the type of work order that it is or where it's coming from, any completion criteria such as whether or not any management of change documentation is going to be required, any forms or regulatory compliance documentation such as a hot work permit or confined space permit needs to be filled out. And you can have those work orders, work requests routed differently based upon where in operations they're coming from or different attributes of the work requests. I'm just going to show you a couple quick examples of that. So we have work requests that can be generated, for example, as Ed was mentioning, by a failure in a operator checklist. If something fell below a certain parameter, as you'll see in just a moment, you can have work requests being sent in from a production management or an MES type system, and you can have different rules, different default priorities, and different routings based on those. So, for example, if a pre-shift checklist failure occurs, and it happens in the Springfield plant, then we're just going to send out a basic notification by emailing a group of technicians because this may not be super urgent. We want people to know about it, but this is just a pre-shift startup failure, something that fell below our expected parameters. But you could have another rule that you would set up for any work requests that are being sent from the MES system on a machine that's running in production. That's going to be considered a little more urgent. That work order is going to be created with a higher priority. And we're sending out different set of notifications on this one to not only email a group of technicians, but we're also going to send an SMS text message to a group of maintenance supervisors because this is more urgent. And we're also alerting the QA department as well because this came from the MES system, so the product quality may have been impacted. So we've told the system for this type of work request, coming in from an MES system, from the MES system at the plant, we want the QA department to receive a heads up as well. So again, you can really shape notification, routing, and rules based upon where in operations those work requests are coming from, or those work orders, and also different attributes of those work orders. Just want to show you how an operator could go ahead and fill out one of those pre-shift checklists or a autonomous maintenance TPM or operator-based maintenance. When the operator logs in, they'll see all the machines they've been assigned to right on their homepage. It's another example of, really shaping the homepage to the ease of use of the user, where they don't have to look up a machine. It's right on their homepage, that all the machines that they're operating. And if they do want to go ahead and, at the beginning of their shift, fill out that checklist, they can do that. It can contain, steps that they can check off that they've completed, but also prompt them to record conditions of the machine, record any information. So for example, record the current oil pressure reading they're seeing, and you can set rules up on this to automatically trigger those checklist failures. So for example, if they enter an oil pressure lower than 45, that's something that we want to have trigger maintenance work. So if I enter 38, that indicates to me by going blue there that that's going to automatically trigger a work request. And they can also enter any measures of utilization here, such as runtime hours or machine cycles or total units produced. And that's going to allow Lumen to automatically trigger any utilization-based PMs, such as a 500-hour runtime servicing or a die sharpening that needs to be done every 10,000 stamping cycles. So those are different ways that the operators can interact. They can also, of course, create a work request for any machine they're operating very quickly and easily right from here. And they can even bring up this operator UI right from within the HMI application that they are using within their MES or SCADA or DCS system to control the equipment, so they don't even have to leave that environment. Okay, back to you, Ed.
Okay, phenomenal. Thank you. That's great, Doug. Awesome. Okay, another quick poll. So we're going to do a poll on work request types, and Doug kind of talked through a few of those. We want to hear what you guys have to say. What's important? What's critical in your operations? So this should appear shortly. Yeah, we've got customers that have set up different types of work requests. Some that are, are focused on safety, some on production, some facilities, and so we always, are interested in hearing about, which ones are high priority in your environment. Again, it's all about the type of operation you're managing, and that's going to be reflective of what's important in terms of an unplanned request or something. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, safety. Yeah, okay. I guess regardless of industry, safety is always a biggie. Yeah, very cool. Okay. We will send out the results in a second. All right, awesome. Yeah, so obviously safety is a big, a big concern in terms of wanting to, remediate and track and root cause and all that for any industry, and obviously probably a lot of manufacturers on the call today. So production related, work requests and then work orders are obviously next in line. So yeah, as you saw with our product, you do get the ability to have different routes of actions to different people based on what the work request type was. So that's just something that hopefully resonates with this audience. So, all right, well, thanks so much. That was great. So let's keep going. All right, so now we're going to look at another use case. We talked about operations input. Now let's take a look at what it looks like when different asset conditions or parameters are monitored and acted upon. So we're going to look at, I guess, two types of asset conditions or parameters. One is the length of time the asset's been used, utilization levels or usage levels, and obviously this typically can be like hours of use, but there's, again, based on the industry and the type of operations you guys have, utilization can also be measured in terms of number of products made or number of starts on the machine. So whatever is important to that type of machine is what needs to be monitored and triggered off of. And then while that asset's running, we can take a look at the real-time conditions and parameters that represent the health of the machine while it's in operation. So these are two different types of data our customers can use to trigger actions. So let's take a look at another demo with this. So so input from machine data.
Okay, great. Yeah, so let's take a look at how Lumen CMMS Plus can monitor the real-time conditions of your machines, your equipment, your assets. So I'm back here in the Asset Master for one of my machines, and we've tied this in to monitor the real-time conditions of that machine, and we did that with the Lumen Machine Interface Service. The Machine Interface Service can tie into your machines, your equipment, through any type of control system software, such as a SCADA system or DCS system running at the plant, also any IoT type sensors you may have, or even the PLC controllers themselves. And when you do that, that allows Lumen to monitor in real time the conditions of that equipment coming from the, coming through the control system. So in this example here on this machine, we're currently monitoring in real time the pressure coming off of it, the temperature of it. There's a vibration sensor on there that's being monitored in real time. And then finally, the runtime hours. And once Lumen is monitoring this information, there's several things that can be done with that. First, that runtime hours is a measure of actual equipment utilization. And as Ed was mentioning, it doesn't necessarily just have to be runtime hours. It could be machine cycles. It could be total units produced. It could be mileage on a vehicle. Really any measure of utilization that you want to do your routine PMing or inspections off of. And you can actually have even multiple measures of utilization that you're tracking for a given type and trigger work off of it. So for example, on this type of equipment, we do want to track both the runtime hours as well as the number of machine cycles. So both of these are being tracked as measures of utilization. We're getting that information sent to us in real time, in this case through a SCADA system that we're connected to. And this is allowing Lumen to automatically trigger routine recurring maintenance, such as PMs, inspections, and calibrations off that utilization. So in this case, on this particular asset, we have a PM that's being triggered every 500 runtime hours, and then also a another type of PM that needs to be triggered every 1,000 start-stop cycles. So that allows you to, really trigger those PMs more accurately based upon actual equipment utilization rather than just calendar-based, which of course we also support. And those utilization-based PMs are of course going to be more accurate. They're going to prevent you from over-PMing when this machine is not being used as frequently as usual, and from missing PMs if it's being used more frequently than usual. But in addition to just triggering those recurring PMs based upon actual equipment utilization, you can also set up these more proactive or even predictive condition-based triggers, which are going to allow you to monitor for indications that a machine is starting to operate out of spec, or for early warning signs or smaller issues that could become a bigger issue if not addressed, and proactively and predictively address those by being alerted to them and having Lumen CMMS Plus automatically take actions based on those conditions. So let me just show you a quick example of how you can set those up. So you can set these rules up based upon any of the conditions that we're monitoring. So if we want to monitor, for example, for rising temperature and vibration levels, because we know that is an early indication of something starting to go wrong that we want to address proactively, we can just set up a condition that says if that vibration sensor we have on there starts registering levels higher than 20, that is an indication of a problem. And you can combine conditions. So we're going to add another condition related to the temperature. And in this case, we want to do it based on analytics rather than it being over just a certain number of degrees, like just anything over 100 degrees. What we really want to look for is an anomaly, a spike to a trend or a deviation from a trend. So we're going to say if that temperature goes more than 25% above, or I could say more than 2 standard deviations above a certain moving average, in this case, we'll say our 7-day moving average, that is a spike to a trend. It's an anomaly. That's a condition we want to monitor for. And if this set of conditions ever does occur, we do want to address it proactively. So we're going to have the system send out some notifications. Specifically in this case, we're going to have it automatically send an email to a group of technicians at that particular plant. And you can set escalations on these as well. So in this case, if none of those technicians responds within, let's say, 2 hours, we're going to have the system go ahead, automatically escalate this. And now we're going to have it send a SMS text message to a group of maintenance supervisors at the plant because things are getting more urgent now. And then finally, in addition to just letting people know there's a problem, Lumen CMMS Plus can also take additional actions automatically, such as in this case, we'll ask it to create a work order automatically to repair the equipment. And if you know what the likely remedy is to the problem based on the symptoms, such as in this case, high temperature and vibration levels is often indicative of a bearings issue, you can have it create that work order with the necessary procedures and parts needed to remedy the situation. And you can even have it automatically create requisitions for those parts if you don't have them in stock to, again, really, streamline the process, shorten that repair cycle. Now the system is monitoring proactively and predictively for early warning signs of a problem and alerting people automatically to that problem before it does become a bigger issue or a downtime event. It's automatically creating a work order for technicians to start working on, and it's even telling them how to fix the problem, the parts and procedures they'll need, and creating requisitions for those parts. So all of this, really works together to shorten that repair cycle and reduce the overall asset downtime. Okay, back to you, Ed.
That's awesome. All right, very cool. Okay, poll number 3 coming up. So you're going to see this on your screens. This one is focused on recurring work schedules. So obviously PMs or any type of recurring work, recurring calibrations, inspections, that sort of thing. Just interested in hearing what the audience has to say about what triggers are you guys using, and what's important. So that should be on your screen shortly. Yes, good. Okay. Okay, looks great. Yep. Very interesting. It's cool. It's great information. So yeah, we're going to send out the results. All right, awesome. Yeah, so I guess kind of makes a lot of sense. I think folks are doing combinations of both date-based and actual usage-based, and criteria around conditions as well. So that's great information. Thanks so much, you guys. Very cool. All right, so let's keep going. All right, so now, okay, we looked at some inputs, obviously, asset conditions and machine data, and also operations inputs. And now let's take a look at, the creating these, thoughtful, proactive, criteria-based rules around those inputs, that then when events or, various criteria are met, outcomes can be triggered that speak to, making sure that the right procedures are in place, any type of documentation that needs to be in place is in place. And again, it's all based on what's going on at the time of the event, what asset, or what conditions, perhaps even, what operations were being done with the asset, time of day, maybe even looking at, day of the week or whatever. So, and then creating rules around that so that we're ensured that the right people are involved, the right people are notified. If there are third-party suppliers or contractors, they're in the loop. And of course, making sure that both folks from operations and maintenance are in sync. And so let's take a look at what this looks like in CMMS Plus. So demo number 4, our last demo, looking at outcomes, proactive and optimized outcomes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so let's take a look at some of the work orders that would have been generated using the rules we looked at previously. All the new work orders that have come into the system, whether they are manually requested or created by an operator, or if they're triggered automatically based upon some of the prior criteria that you saw, such as a operator filling out a pre-shift checklist and their oil pressure was too low, is one example we looked at. An MES system automatically sending work requests to our API. And then finally, we also looked at one based upon the real-time conditions of the machine and when our temperature and vibration levels were starting to move out of spec. All of that has created work orders. Those work orders can vary based upon the different conditions that were established for the type of work order, the source that it came from. So let's take a look at some of those work orders that were created. I can see as a maintenance supervisor all those work orders as they come in real time right on my home page where I can assign them. I'm just going to bring up a few of those work orders so we can take a look at some of the differences with them, and then also take a look at how some of the compliance and regulatory information is enforced. So we have the one that was sent to us as an MES request. We have this one here that was, do you want to open that in a new window, open in a new tab? This one was the result of a checklist failure. And then finally, we had the one that was created by the machine conditions. So these are the first two that came in from operations. And here is the work order that was automatically generated if the operator, when they're doing their pre-shift checklist, entered a oil pressure below 45 because 38 was entered. It has automatically created this work order with what the problem was on it. A work order that came in from MES, as you saw earlier, we had additional fields that were getting passed to Lumen by the MES system. So based upon the type of work order, additional information is being passed that's being made available to the technicians, to anyone else, the maintenance supervisor who was looking at it, in this case, the product SKU that was being run, the formulation that was being used, the type of defect, station number, really any information. And again, that can all be shaped by the customers, by the users, right within Lumen. I want to take a look at that work order that was that would be created by the temperature and vibration levels getting too high. We told the system to automatically create a work order to replace the bearings. We told it to put specific procedures and parts that were needed on that work order. So it has done that. So as that temperature and vibration level started moving out of acceptable parameters, it automatically created this work order to not only fix the machine, but specifically to, in this case, replace the bearings. The work order has the step-by-step procedure on it that needs to be followed, and even attached PDF of, from the manufacturer of the bearing replacement procedure. It's also added the parts that are needed to that work order. And we told it to automatically request any parts that aren't available. We can also see if those parts, if they're not available in our stock room, if they're available at any other plants. So I can just go ahead and take a look. If we don't have this drive belt on hand in our stock room, I can easily see if any of our other neighboring plants have it on hand. And that's going to be, of course, faster and cheaper to get it from one of our neighboring plants than to order a new one from the vendor to get that machine up and running sooner. Any parts that need to be ordered are going to automatically come out to our reorder list. So if we don't have that bearing in stock, it's going to automatically go out to the reorder list so that whoever's in charge of ordering the spare parts will see that that part is needed and be able to reorder it right away, again, to really reduce that repair cycle, reduce the downtime, and get the machine up and running as quickly as possible. Now, we also took a look earlier at how different pre-work checklists, different criteria and compliance can be required based upon the type of work. Just want to show you, real quickly an example of that. So we saw that you can require that certain work be done, such as a lockout tagout, or maybe a confined space permit needs to be filled out, or hot work permit, and how that can be enforced before the technicians can go ahead and complete the work order. So we want to go ahead as a technician on our mobile device. We're going to go ahead and complete this work order to replace those bearings. So I'm just going to tap on the work order and tap complete. And it's actually telling me that I have to do some additional information first, that I've got to fill out that pre-work checklist. So it's not going to allow me to actually complete this work order until I go ahead, bring up that pre-work checklist and fill it out. So now I can just go ahead and fill out our pre-work checklist by bringing it up. And in this case, it's a lockout tagout for that equipment. Where I'm just going to walk through, and they're actually requiring proof in this case that I locked out, tagged out the device. So I'm going to actually just take a picture of the locked out, tagged out equipment, attach that to the work order. That's going to allow me to now proceed with the work. And it's also going to have documented, for audit purposes, compliance purposes, it's going to have documented that I have locked out, tagged out that equipment, electronically signed off on that, and even uploaded a picture, in this case, of the locked out, tagged out equipment. And then finally, you saw as part of, post-work completion criteria, any, like management of change documentation or anything like that can be filled out, can be required and triggered based upon the the type of work that's being done. So if a work order is completed that requires any sort of management of change follow-up work, then that's going to automatically trigger a work order to do that. That can have different procedures on it that can be routed to different departments. So we're having a, as part of this type of work, it needs to go through several different management of change processes, including engineering review, a process documentation update, and then also the drawings have to be updated, and all of those can be filled out by the appropriate departments, signed off on, etc. So just, a look at some of the outcomes of how these differently configured rules, how these differently configured work types can, really have different outcomes in terms of the types of work orders that get created, the rules that are enforced on those work orders, the routing of those work orders, who gets notified, etc. Okay, back to you, Ed.
Awesome. That was great. Thanks a lot, Doug. Really cool. Okay, so one last poll for everybody. What's top of mind for you when it comes to maintenance? Basically, what's important? And this is the last poll. So thanks for your patience. We look forward to the answers, and they should be showing up on your screen shortly. Oh, that's great. Well, obviously, um, we know why everyone's here, so that's great. Um, cool. Good input. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Okay. Yes, great. All right. Okay, we'll send those out in a second. Yeah, so obviously, by a lot, unplanned downtime is number one. It's interesting because that's obviously the core of why we're all here. It is interesting though that sometimes management gets our customers a lot of times a lot of their criteria for management and all that steps in, and there's so much time spent, which is it still makes sense, but there's a lot of time spent on reporting and all that, which is important in terms of showing a return on investment and labor resources and all that. But in the end, it does come down to making sure that unplanned downtime is reduced or eliminated. So that makes a ton of sense. Okay, well, great. So just about wrapping up here. So just kind of summarizing what we saw today. So looking at this, we looked at ways that different data from operations or input from operations and data from assets and machinery can be used in conjunction with criteria-based rules to when events occur, trigger outcomes that ensure that the right parts, the right people, the right actions are taken at the right time, and of course all associated communications and reminders are also sent when necessary. So honestly, looking at it another way, we call it engineering preparedness. It's our term we use, like CMMS Plus. It's all about engineering preparedness for our customers, and it's vitally important that we allow our customers to be prepared for every stage of what we call a maintenance and remediation life cycle. Obviously, depending on the work being done and the asset criticality, this life cycle will take on different levels of importance at each stage, but the life cycle exists, and our goal is to make sure that our customers are optimized for every stage. So advanced notification or reminders to stakeholders. Who are they? When do they need to be notified? And sometimes when do they need to be reminded? Before work starts, Doug showed some examples of this. What type of actions need to be taken prior to work commencement, in order to ensure safety and also just any other type of readiness. That's a stage that we want our customers to be optimized around. And then the actions of the work itself, making sure, as we said, making sure that the right skill sets are being assigned, the right procedures, the right documentation are being presented, and of course, parts and tooling and all that. And then finally, depending on the event and maybe the criticality of the asset involved, there's the fourth, what we call fourth stage of life cycle, which is post-work criteria. In other words, when is it necessary to trigger workflows for either continuous improvement and updates to our processes, or workflows that speak to management of change and compliance and reporting and all that. So this is sort of, we hope you guys got a sense of how the product works and how the product hopefully can be used in your operations. So that is pretty much all I have. So thanks so much for being with us, and we look forward to any questions you have. I know there's some, so we'll get to those. And this is us.
Terrific. Thanks, Ed, and thanks, Doug, for the presentation. For anybody who do want to get in touch with Ed and Doug directly, you've got their emails and their phone numbers right there on that last slide. You can also download the entire slide deck from the event resources section of the website, of the portal, I mean. as well as a presentation on a link to a Lumen ebook on proactive maintenance best practices. So I think we have time for 2, maybe 3 questions. The first one is direct. If we don't have control systems or condition sensors in place, will this system still work for us?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, there's
question.
a number of, it is a great question. So there's a number of different ways that you can get real-time information. The system will, of course, work even, without triggering off of real-time condition attributes, just based upon, date-based PMs and any work orders entered. But even for those real-time equipment conditions or equipment conditions, those operator checklists, operator-based maintenance or autonomous maintenance or TPM, you saw as an example, if, an operator just sees on, a gauge that an oil pressure is a certain amount, enters that in, that can be set up to automatically trigger a follow-up work order, or routine inspections done by technicians is another way that you can get that information. So there's, you certainly don't need to be tied in directly electronically to your equipment or to all of it. Even places that do have, equipment tied into SCADA systems, you're always going to have a number of machines that aren't, and there's other ways to get that information.
Okay. I'm going to group these next couple of questions together. The more general version is, how do we get our data into your system? And then we have some people asking more specific questions, such as, does Lumen CMMS Plus interface with historians, SCADA, IoT sensors, and other continuous monitoring probes? So, that's a general/specific question, guys.
Yeah.
Sure. So, I'll take the second part of that first. We can tie into historians in addition to SCADA systems. So really, any SCADA system, any DCS system, we use industry standard protocols for those things, like OPC UA is probably the most common, OPC DA, MQTT for IoT type sensors, Modbus TCP for PLC controllers. But we do also have the ability to tie into historians. And also to any REST API. So if you have some sort of control system that doesn't speak one of those protocols, we could tie into its historian or to its REST API. In terms of getting the data into the system, the most typical way that's done is through Excel spreadsheets. We have Excel templates that can be filled out, or you can just send us any Excel spreadsheet that you get out of either a system that you're currently running or just any Excel list you have of your assets. And we can also pull in asset information through those APIs as well. So that's another way to get it in.
Okay, and the last question, we'll get you out of here on this one. Project management tools such as MS Project, Primavera, even say ePermit modules. Does the CMMS Plus feature interfaces with any of that kind of software and data?
Yeah, I mean, we have a project tracking module in our product, but there's no way that we're going to call that module a project management solution. So, yeah, we have our product's built on Microsoft tools, so we have APIs that can export work orders to Microsoft Project Manager or others. And similarly, we have done also project IDs that come from other systems, whether they're from, project modules, or even sometimes we've had business systems send us project IDs, and then we can put a work around that ID and then, sort of send it back. So I guess, Doug, you can speak to this more, but I mean, the short answer is yes. It really does depend on the use case, and we're really flexible. We can either import project information and work around that, or export our system to, at work orders to a project tracking system or project management system.
Yeah, exactly. And, one of the one of the ways that, we've definitely seen that done in the past is, like you were saying, importing those project IDs so that, when you are doing a work order, even if you're not managing the projects within Lumen's project tracking module, you still have the ability for each work order, each purchase order, to tie those to different projects so that you can then still do that reporting to, roll up your costs by the project and then ultimately export that information out from Lumen.
Okay.
All right. Awesome.
Well, I think that takes us to time. So, Ed, Doug, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
And on behalf of Plant Services, I'd like to thank Lumen for sponsoring today's webinar, and also thank everyone for joining today. We encourage you to take a brief exit survey that will appear on your screen at the end of this presentation to provide some feedback that we can use to improve future events. So once again, thanks to Lumen, thanks Ed and Doug, and thanks everyone for being here. Have a great rest of the day, everybody.
Thanks a lot.